almost from day one, right? And this is Frank Lombardi. Frank, why don't you come on up? And he's going to share his story with you guys. Frank, thank you for attending tonight. If you would just share with everybody what you and your family have been going through, and so they can, get a feel for that.
Sure. Yeah, so we evacuated once we got the call, I think it was a Wednesday morning, I don't even remember, it seems so long ago. And the way that we were evacuated, one thing I remember doing before we evacuated, my wife and I prayed the night before we went to bed with the kids. And my son, to this day, he still says, "But you told me that we weren't gonna have to leave the house." And I told him I didn't know if we would have to leave the house. Ultimately, we did. We took things for a day because we didn't really think that something was gonna happen. I live 13 miles away from Eaton Canyon. I'm just south of Woodbury and Fair Oaks. So we definitely didn't think that anything was gonna happen to us. We thought it was just a precautionary measure. My wife, who's lived in her whole life, kept telling me the fire's never come down this far, we'll be okay, but let's go. So we packed up our things that we thought for the night, the kids and our cats, and we immediately went to the Pasadena Humane Society, thinking that we might have been the first ones there. There was a huge line there. We saw people with all kinds of animals, including horses and alpacas and all these other animals that were looking to be housed while people were finding housing for themselves or a place to settle. We didn't find anything that night, so we were able to go to our aunt's house that's down by the freeway off of Allen in that area. It was still smoky, but not as bad as our house. By that time, our house was like completely filled with smoke. I have an older craftsman house with original windows. We later found out when we came back to the house that the windows had been blown open. So there was all types of smoke that had gone through that weren't just from Eaton Canyon, but from the embers that set everything north of Montana on fire. I think we're like 20 houses from the corner of Glen and Montana. And so if you're on Woodbury going from Fair Oaks to Lincoln, you can see where all those burnt houses were. And in my backyard, that property ended up in my backyard. Like, we found pieces of mesquite, like large pieces of burnt wood on my deck, and Bible papers and other debris that had burned that moved in. To date, my wife and I have moved, I think we're in Monrovia now, so 16 or 17 times we moved. Yes. We were paying, when we weren't staying at the Hampton Inn, which a lot of other fire victims were staying there as well, we were paying up to $25,000 a month in rent. Yes, this was depleting our ALE money. We had a policy for our ALE up to $125,000 through State Farm, was our insurance provider. That burnt through super quick. So we started to get really nervous. We didn't want to stay in Airbnbs. It was just what was available. My son, who's on the spectrum, he has autism, was being homeschooled at the time. So not only did he lose all of that, but a lot of the support services in the area were also lost in the fire. He had a support service across the street from Elliott that burnt. He did karate at Two Dragons Karate School. That's on the corner of Mariposa and Lake. That was gone, and for him, that was like a really big thing. And our home is tied into his schooling, not just because it was the place that my wife and I would be teaching him, but a lot of the devices he used to self-regulate and manage was in the backyard, and we couldn't take any of that with us. And when we were in hotels or whether we were in, the Airbnbs, we couldn't have any of that stuff. And I'm sure we've all stayed in Airbnbs before. It's great, like when you're on vacation, but when you're going there with your family to consider that place home, every time that we moved or where we thought we were going to move, we would have to vet to see what the house is like, check registries to see if it's safe for our kids, see if it had a backyard. And a lot of times people just go to Airbnbs for a little, R&R. we were going there to live, so we had necessities. And even filtering through all these places, we would still find that there was deficiencies in these places. Sometimes they only had like 1 or 2 sets of silverware. They had no pots and pans. The refrigerator didn't work. We were actually asked to leave from 2 homes because my son uses an emotional support cat, and the owners later found out that we had an emotional support cat, even though we were forthcoming through Airbnb. And on Airbnb, it tells you, come. We don't discriminate if you have one of those animals, but nonetheless, we were pushed out. We lived as far as Glendora, going east. I've lived as far as Burbank, going west. I work in Pasadena. I work at Washington Elementary School. That was also in the burn zone. My car, we believe that my car was affected from the fire, so we were down to 1 vehicle. Even though I was able to walk from my home to Washington, this was no longer a possibility, so it created much more stress on my wife and I to figure out how we were going to go from point A to point B, living so far away in unknown areas. The insurance from the jump, I couldn't believe how resistant they were. I mean, I still remember 11 or 12 years ago when we bought our house, Frank Jones, our insurance agent, sat us down and sold us the package of, this is the best thing you're going to get. These are all the reasons why you should go with State Farm. He assured us that if anything would happen, they would have our back. None of that. When things settled the first day, he was the first person I called. I was actually hoping that he would have called me first. I mean, it was all over the news, and if you're a head of a insurance company, I would thought that you would want to reach out to those clients that were affected. He didn't. The only news he had for me was a reminder that State Farm had sent me a letter saying that they were going to cut our insurance if we hadn't done these changes. And this was like 3 or 4 months before the fires, and I had no prior knowledge to that letter. So it was very scary because now one of the things that they wanted us to change was kind of with the fire, like the roof. Like we needed to replace our roof. And we didn't know that was State Farm's plan, like to basically cut us off. So we're struggling with that. We tried to get State Farm to come in, look at our house, assess it. They denied everything. They denied the wind, despite standing on top of all types of roof debris, seeing my son's toys scattered all over the yard, our canopy mangled, the hole in the roof, the shingles, just denied. And it was so hard, and I'm lucky that my job actually allowed me to step away from the job for 3 months or 2 months or something like that to be able to handle this, because it was already breaking me down and my wife down to be able to have to handle this. We didn't know anything what to do. There was no guidance. We were calling around, but very hesitant on who to trust, because we had been hearing stories that there was a lot of sharks out there looking to take advantage of people like us. So we were very wary of that. So we've gone through, like, I think, what was right there, like, at least 4 adjusters or 5 adjusters. They play good cop, bad cop. They'll send us a bad one. They'll send us a good one. They promised us the world through this process, just to remain patient and trusting them. The first thing that my wife and I wanted to make sure that we were in a place, like I said, for my son, and State Farm promised like swing sets and different things for my son to help regulate. We didn't get any of that. All we got was like empty promises. And we were actually looking, my wife and I felt very strongly about her and I being the ones in control of where the money goes and how the money is received. And State Farm didn't want to allow that. I demanded that we max out our policies with the ability to give us that freedom to have the money to see where it goes. Long story short, we've burnt out all of our ALE money. They gave us a $40,000 check, basically representing everything that we owned, that my wife and I have owned, my wife's wedding dress, things that she's made for my kids, stuff that we've gotten from Mexico, just stuff that's irreplaceable. $40,000 is nothing. We're using that $40,000 now to cover our living expenses in Monrovia. We finally found a place in Monrovia on Foothill, it's a very nice neighborhood. It's close to home. It's close to the park. However, it's not home, you know. So now I'm in a position where The 40 grand that they gave us, that's going to dwindle down very soon, and we don't know what to do once we get to that place. I'm paying my mortgage on Navarro. I'm paying $4,000 in this new place. I'm paying Pasadena Water Power for the lights and stuff at my house on Navarro. I'm paying PG&E, or SoCal Edison, money for our utilities there. So it's been very difficult. And fortunately, through our union, the Teamsters, they linked us up with Fire Justice, and since pretty much the beginning of this, we've been here with LA Fire Justice, and they've been really helpful in guiding us along.
So the $40,000, was that contents money?
Yes.
How much, what percentage do they give you?
No, I'm sorry. I had coverage up to 250,000, and they gave me only 40,000 of that 250 for basically everything. My understanding of everything. And even after they wrote us a check for 40,000, my wife and I still didn't even know what was in the house. Like, we didn't have we didn't feel safe to go through the things. And State Farm kept saying, all you need to do is just go through your stuff and just let us know what things are worth. And
The house didn't burn down?
no, the house didn't burn down completely, but the lead levels are through the roof. My daughter's right there. There's no way that we're allowing our kids to stay in that house. We had the soil tested. It's all really high levels. So just in that particular area, things are very, very tough. Like, even though we're like the only ones that decided to stay out, I still think that people are still in the dark about a lot of the stuff. So with the help of Fire Justice, they've kind of shed a light on that for me and my wife.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Frank. So it's been a real pleasure working with Frank, trying to help his family recover and get through this whole disaster, right? So here at LA Fire Justice, our main focus is the lawsuit against Edison. However, we do realize that a lot of our clients need additional information, right? And so that is why we provide insurance workshops, emotional distress workshops, rebuild workshops, in order for you to be able to get all the information that is available, okay? So tonight we're gonna focus on some of those issues that Frank has brought up and some other ones, okay? All right, so I think it's very important, guys, that we start with the basics. And now many of you have become experts with the next part, and that is what your coverages are, okay? Have most of you gotten a real education on coverage A, B, C, and D, right? Coverage A is your dwelling, that's the main home. Dwelling extensions are any structures that are detached from that home, right? Personal property, this is the big one right now. And as Frank's home did not burn, we're gonna talk about one of the issues is the insurance companies are more willing to clean than replace the items, right? And so we'll dive into that. And then coverage D, which many of you unfortunately are still using. Unfortunately for Frank, they've exhausted it because of the high rent, right? And so knowing what each of these are is one thing, but the real document that you need to dive into is this is a decorations page, okay? This is an example of one. They all look different from each insurance company. However, they basically have the same information on them, right? So this particular person for dwelling has $300,000 in coverage. Other structures, $30,000. Personal property, $225,200, and loss of use, $120,000. Okay, those are called your base coverages. All right. However, that is not all that this individual has in coverages. If you look at the policy or the decorations page a little deeper, you'll see that there's building code upgrades, an additional $75,000, right? There's also replacement cost, this is a replacement cost policy. Also, there's an endorsement for 150%. That is probably the one that's gonna be the most valuable to anyone that has a total loss home. Knowing if you have this endorsement, what this means is, if you exhaust rebuilding your home, that $300,000 in coverage A, and it's gonna be more than that to rebuild your home, you have an additional 50% that will kick in, okay? So you actually have roughly 450,000 in coverage there, okay? And so what I am offering and what this whole week is about, we're starting this week off with a workshop, but then we're following it up with one-on-one free consultations. So if you're not certain how to read your deck page, if you're not certain what you've been paid, please take advantage of one of these one-on-one sessions this week. We're doing Tuesday through Sunday. Okay, so if you can't get here during the week, please book a meeting. What I will do is sit down with you. It is free. And we will go through your policy, we'll go through your deck page, and if you tell me what you've been paid, we'll try to piece the puzzle together, and then we'll come up with some next steps. Make sure you got everything, okay? That's coming to you. All right? Some of the endorsements that I will be looking for is that extended replacement cost that we talked about, your building code upgrades. When we get our rebuild estimates, we want to make sure that those upgrades are itemized out, right? Because these are additional coverages. Trees and shrubs and debris removal, okay? And we could talk about how all that works, okay? So it's very important, if you haven't taken advantage, before you leave tonight, please, there's a couple of remaining spots. Let's get them booked, okay? So here's some of the issues that I've been receiving as I talk to clients. The biggest question is, why is there a lack of transparency and clarity in my insurance payouts, right? One, we just talked about, most people don't know what they're eligible for. And two, even when you're receiving money from the insurance companies, sometimes it's vague. Was that towards my personal property? Was that towards my home, ALE? And that's what I could help you figure out, okay? And we'll just bring your documentation in. We'll have a one-on-one, and we will put all that together. So if you're uncertain about any of this, please schedule this policy review.
What is your name, I'm sorry?
By the way, my name's Harold. If I didn't start with that, I apologize. I recognize most of your faces in here, so I was probably too comfortable to move forward. Most people call me H, so please feel free to call me H, okay? What I would ask you to bring with you is definitely your decorations page and any payout statements you have so that we can track what the payments, and then we can start putting them into the proper buckets: dwelling, other structures, ALE, personal property, okay? Frank mentioned this. He's on, you said fourth adjuster?
Yes, fourth adjuster.
So many clients are reporting being assigned multiple adjusters. Why is this happening? I used to be something that they call an independent catastrophe adjuster, meaning I was outsourced by State Farm, Allstate. When the event first happens, the claim volume is really high. As we come in and help get that claim volume down, they start sending independent adjusters home. And most of us are from Texas, Louisiana, Florida. Most of your adjusters are probably not from California. Has that been everybody's experience? Yeah, right. And so as that happens, they have to reassign your case. And as the caseload gets smaller and smaller, eventually the in-office team can handle the volume, right? So what I recommend doing is keep a single organized claim file, because every time you start with a new adjuster, it can almost be like starting your claim from square one, right? And so we need to keep an organized file of what adjuster one told you, of what adjuster two told you, right? Because adjusters love to make promises, right? And so we're going to demand all correspondence. Anytime an adjuster makes a promise, we want that in writing. Okay? Demand it in writing. And we also need to politely but firmly demand continuity. Request a written summary of your claim status each time an adjuster changes. We want to know what that last adjuster's notes were in the file. Did he promise you he was going to pay to replace all your personal property, but then the new adjuster comes on and says, we're not paying for any of that. We're going to clean it, right? But the other adjuster said he would pay for it. Well, we needed that in writing, because if we can show it in writing, then we can get them to move forward that way, okay? Very important. Also, this is a big one, guys. Insurance companies sometimes try to minimize their payouts, right? Insurance companies sometimes try to minimize their payouts. They may offer to only pay the repair cost rather than paying the replacement of damaged property, or downplay or ignore smoke and damaged ash, which can significantly, even if the flames didn't touch the property, as a lot of you are dealing with right now. The insurance companies want to clean your property. Oh, I still smell smoke. Well, let's clean it again, right? But they don't want to test. And therefore, you have to take their word that the cleaning was substantial, right? We need to get them to replace those items, especially if you have high lead, like in Frank's home. A lot of times cleaning is not going to get rid of that, right? And so what we need to do to combat this is get independent contractor bids. So if their initial offer to replace your home is too low, then we have to go out and get our own contractors' bids to show them that their price is too low and why. And what they'll do is take your contractor's estimate and theirs and put them through what they call a reconciliation period. They'll reconcile the two estimates, right? But we need to get them to pay off the actual cost, the replacement cost, okay? We don't need to accept the first offer. Everything with insurance is negotiation. We need to negotiate with documentation, right? We're going to pay you $300,000 to replace your home, but it's going to be $500,000 to actually rebuild. Well, we need to be maxing out that policy, right? We need to be getting as much of that $500 as we can through the policy. And if we hit a roadblock there, I can advocate for you, with you, okay? But if we have to, we will use the Department of Insurance complaint process to get things moving, okay? Give me a second to get some water. Sorry, guys, got a little. Any questions so far?
So does this apply to both homes that have been completely burned down as well as the homes that?
Yeah, especially for homes that are completely burned down. If we don't max out your policy, then we want to go and get our own contractors' bids to find out what the actual cost to rebuild is. Then we want to submit that to the insurance companies.
So if we get a bid and they think it's too much, they can say, I mean.
They shouldn't.
If we only have, let's say the home was worth $1 million and they're only, the dwelling is only 500. And then we get a bid of, I don't know, 900,000.
Are you saying your policy limit is 500?
Well, not exactly, but
Okay.
I'm giving an example.
Right.
Okay, because my home was worth over $1 million, but I'm giving 5+.
That's why we want to do a policy review with you. We want to see, what are you entitled to? You're entitled to that base coverage. Let's see what type of endorsements you have. But we need to be factoring that off of your contractor's estimate, not the insurance company's initial estimate. Okay?
Okay, but I mean, if it's, again, I'm just making it even 500 just for
Sure.
math. But we're allowed the extended coverage.
Uh-huh.
But can we get more than that? I mean,
No.
that's just it, right? So
No.
I'm not understanding how this, you're talking
But we
about
need to make sure we get it. If you're maxing out your insurance policy, then that's fine. Then we're good, right? That's what we want to make sure you get, every dollar that you need to rebuild, right? Up to your policy limit. Then in the lawsuit, we will go after any additional money, any cost above insurance. Does that make sense? So let's say you have let's say we look through your whole policy, you have $700,000 in coverage. That's with the endorsements, everything. But your contractor says it's going to be $1 million to rebuild. Well, you would get the 700, we need to get the 700 from insurance, and the other 300 would need to come from the lawsuit to get you that full $1 million that you need to recover.
Okay, so in this conversation, are you saying some of the insurance companies are kind of hesitating or not really wanting to give that full 700 or whatever?
That's right. So a lot of people are coming to me right now with their initial insurance company's estimates, which are significantly below the actual rebuild and below the policy limits, right? So the only way we could say that their estimate is too low is with documentation. We need our own we need our own contractor's estimate to show them to rebuild my home is actually going to be $1 million, right? And therefore, I should be entitled to the full 700,000. Okay? Okay. So a lot of yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
If I haven't done any contractor estimates, is there a time limit on by when you have to have contractor estimates?
Yes. Yes, there is. So you need to work with your adjuster, but you're not in any danger of missing the time limit now, right? But I believe you have 2 years from the time of the fire. But
So we just get the estimate?
yes, the estimate. So that's why the one-on-one meeting would be important, is if you come in, we can see what you've been paid, what you're entitled to, and then we need to put together a contractor's estimate, have a contractor come in and give us an estimate of what it's actually going to cost to see if the insurance company gave you a fair offer in the beginning or not.
Can you do an estimate without an architectural plan?
Yes. Yes. Okay, we'd have to bring a contractor in, and he would give you an estimate to rebuild something similar, like in kind, to what you lost. Okay?
So how about like the Genesis homes or the Foothill catalog homes, where it's already a set price depending on which home you pick? Is that estimate enough, or?
It would depend. I would have to see, I'm not too familiar with those particular homes, but what we would want is a detailed, itemized contractor's estimate, right? Listing out what the costs are to rebuild the home. And then the insurance company's going to take a look at that. And they're going to compare it to what their adjuster said the actual cost is. The insurance companies are notorious for using a program called Xactimate. Most contractors don't use that because Xactimate is notorious for lowballing figures, okay? Not taking into account the cost increase after a fire, right? So we want to make sure that you're getting the proper amount in everything. So if you have a total loss home, most likely after an event like this, we should be maxing out your claim, your policy. If we're not, then we need to find out why, right? And so we'll work on that together.
So back to, mentioned the Genesis or the Foothill catalogs home. Some of they do, they also include like refrigerator and stove. So that sounds complicated now to work with the insurance, but that's not just the dwelling, but that's part of contents.
Yes. So the refrigerator is a little gray area. The stove is usually something, think of personal property as things in your homes that are not attached permanently. So if you were going to move out of your home and into another home, what was everything that you would generally take with you to the new home? Typically, you wouldn't take the stove with you, right? Or the dishwasher. You could, I'm not saying, but typically a person doesn't, right? You might, but most people don't. Right? The refrigerator is a gray area, so that's typically considered a personal property item, right? And so that's part of that reconciliation that the insurance companies will look at. They will say, the cost of this home is similar to, the replacement of this home on your estimate is similar like in kind to what you lost. It's higher because we didn't account for higher cost or whatever. But if you start doing a lot of cosmetic upgrades, they're gonna say, well, you had carpet, but now you're going with marble tile. We're not paying for that upgrade. That's different than a code upgrade, right? So that's why they have to reconcile the two estimates to make sure you're replacing similar, like in kind, okay? Okay. Insurance companies, a lot of people have been telling me that they're using delay tactics. They're either requesting endless documentation, repeated inspections, or just long gaps in communication with you, right? So what you need to do, guys, in order to protect yourself from this, is document all those delays. Every time you attempt to contact your adjuster, document that, all right? Who you contacted, what you were promised, and California law prohibits unreasonable delays. So having a record that I tried to get them on August 1st, but they're not responding, and here we are, September 15th, right? If we have to go to the California commissioner, we can lay that out for them, and then they can say, request and advocate on your behalf to get a response from the insurance companies. Yes, ma'am.
Like I'm talking a lot. So, like we had a new adjuster as well, and yeah, we're really not happy with him. And talking about delays, so he had made an appointment with us 10 to 11, and he didn't call, he didn't show up, he didn't call to
Yeah.
schedule until 4:30 that afternoon, and just said, I'm sorry, I can't do it tomorrow. And we told him no for the
Yeah.
next day. He was just really upset. But what can happen? I mean, what can be done? I did request someone else because he was so terrible, but
Yeah. So adjusters, guys, just like in any field, there are very good adjusters and there are very bad adjusters, right? And so you need to work with your adjuster until you reach a point to where you can't work with that adjuster, and then request a new adjuster, okay? But documenting in case that guy didn't show up and then he ghosts you for 2 months, right? You need to have that documented. So what we can do, if that is a prolonged problem, then we can go to the California Commissioner's office, make a complaint, and we could show them through documentation that, all right, on September 15th, I contacted him. He was supposed to show up. Here, a month and a half later, I still haven't heard back from, and I made several attempts to correspond with him, right? Now we have a case to get the insurance commissioner involved and write a strongly worded letter to the insurance office, which, by the way, I have been working with clients to get the insurance commissioner to write these letters. His office has been very helpful, and what I have found is those letters from his office really get the needle moving. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, they do. No, I was gonna say, in the cost of rebuilding,
Uh-huh.
it's very likely or unlikely that the lawsuit against Edison would be settled. Any claim, so you would have an idea of what your income, what your claim might pay.
Before you settle with the insurance?
No, Edison, with Edison, when you're rebuilding,
Uh-huh.
you don't have enough money.
Right.
For insurance, and you're gonna get something from Edison. It's not likely that's gonna be known in 2 years.
Not likely. But what we want for the lawsuit, now let's step away from insurance and talk lawsuit for a second. We want to know, we're not so concerned with the insurance aspect of it for the lawsuit. We want to know, what is the actual rebuild of your home? What is the actual cost it's going to cost you, right? And then that's what we will go after in the lawsuit. The full replacement cost value of the home. Okay? And that's why we need a good contractor's estimate that shows us what that actual cost is. We're not too concerned with what the insurance companies say it is, right? Because you're only going to get up to your policy limit. And if the rebuild is above your policy limit, then there's a gap there. And that gap is what we need to try, because in her example, $1 million to rebuild, if she's only getting $700 from insurance, well, there's a $300,000 gap that we need to try to recover in the lawsuit, right? Because you need that $1 million to rebuild in that example, right? Okay. So definitely document every time you talk with your insurance company, okay? I know Frank says, anybody else's home smoke damaged? Okay, that's been a real issue in this particular wildfire. We've worked many wildfires. Smoke is not always a major issue like it is here, but it has been a real source of contention for people whose homes are still standing in this Eaton fire, okay? We need to get your homes tested. Ricardo Lara, your insurance commissioner, issued Bulletin 2025-7, which says basically, in a short summary, says essentially that just because your home did not burn down doesn't mean you aren't entitled to a full investigation of those damages, right? And what a lot of insurance companies were doing was saying, you pay for the testing and we'll reimburse you. Well, Ricardo Lara's office has asked them to step up and pay for those testing for individuals, right? Frank would never know he had high levels of lead in his house had it not been for test results, right? He needed that. So test and document smoke, residual, environmental, or cleanup reports. We need those. Policies generally cover direct physical loss. Ash and smoke qualify as direct physical loss. Okay? If denied, we want to cite the California case law and request written denial with policy citations. We want to, if you deny us, we need that in writing, and we need to know what's in our policy that you're using to deny our case. Okay? And if necessary, we may have to explore legal options. Just for the record, LA Fire Justice, like I said in the beginning, his main focus is the lawsuit against Edison. We do not represent you for insurance matters. Okay? I am an informal insurance advocate, so I can advocate for you, I can advise you. Everything we're doing today is for educational purposes, right? And if we have to take it to the next level, then we can help you with a referral if you need be, right, to an insurance, a local insurance coverage attorney. All right? Some of that law that we're talking about is the J. Olive case. In this case, a homeowner affected in the Mountain View fire sued Fair Plan after having smoke damage. In June of this year, the Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Stuart Rice ruled that the Fair Plan's policy regarding smoke damage is unlawful, especially the parts that require damage to be visible unaided to the human eye, or smellable by an unaided nose, or permanent physical change. The real issue here was that term permanent physical damage. The Fair Plan was stating that smoke and ash damage is not permanent damage. We'll tell that to anyone whose home is smoke damaged with high levels of lead, right? Real remediation needs to happen on your homes. And so the rulings say that those restrictive definitions violate California law, requiring coverage for all loss by fire, which includes smoke damage. This case, the Garabine case, it's another case cited in the legal commentary. which emphasizes that the insurers must still provide proof, so you need to provide proof that your home was smoke and ash damaged, but also that the threshold used by the FAIR plan requiring permanent damage was improper. So this case is used in arguments to show that the policyholders have a legal basis to challenge any denial. Okay? So we want to be able to cite those cases. I don't know if this will affect anybody in here, but was anybody's policy with their insurance company within 60 days prior to the fire canceled? Yours was? No, do you still have the same insurance company before the fire? Yeah. Okay. So if that was the case, if cancellation was within 60 days of the disaster, we need to ask whether it complied with California non-renewal protections. Know Your Rights Commissioner Laura has restricted non-renewals in wildfires. Appeals may be possible. Okay. If a cancellation or non-renewal happened within 60 days of a declared disaster, that timing could make it invalid under California consumer protection laws. Commissioner Ricardo Lara has issued multiple temporary moratoriums on non-renewals in wildfire zones, so people may have the right to challenge a cancellation. I won't dwell on this too much since it doesn't seem to affect anybody in this particular room, but if you do know someone that Allstate dropped them 60 days before the fire, they had to get on the FAIR plan, they may be able to appeal that.
Is this different from like the second part of it where it says the temporary moratorium? What about the upcoming year?
Yeah. So did you lose your home?
No.
No. So in California, if you lost your home and you make no significant changes to your policy, you have to be renewed 2 more periods. Okay? 2 more periods. That's if you make no significant change to the policy. A lot of you may be getting phone calls from your insurance company that says the home's no longer on the property. Would you like to have liability only on the property? I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's something you have to decide, but that is a significant change to the policy. Therefore, you're not eligible for those 2 additional renewals if you make that change. Okay? So a lot of people have been reporting that I'm getting a call from my insurance company, right? And some people think it's a good idea because they don't want to pay that premium for a home that's not there. The thing you may run into, though, is if you drop the liability, you may or may not run into this. I want to caveat that. But you are going to rebuild. And when you go to rebuild, if it's within that 2-year period, then you're going to say, I want to up my policy back to my homeowners. No, ma'am, we're not writing any more policies in that area. Oh, well, I have 2 terms. No, ma'am, you made a significant change to your policy, right? So just know that that's the risk, okay? Go back to being ghosted by adjusters. This is something I hear over and over and over again from clients. We've heard too many reports of silence after initial contact or silence after any contact, right? You make a request, 60 days go by. So we always send follow-up emails and CC a supervisor, okay? We want to escalate through the carrier's claims department, and if no answer, we will then go to the insurance commissioner's office. This tip I got from a client in one of our workshops, and it is effective. I have been sharing this information ever since I discovered it, and that is CC in the insurance commissioner's office every time you talk to your insurer. They see that on there. They tend to take a little more action. Yes, Frank.
I have a question. With regards to like getting ghosted or what happens if you inquire respond, but it's a response for something that's totally off the subject.
Then they didn't respond to your question, right? So we want to document that. We want to keep a running documentation of that. And then we're going to escalate that through the carrier's claim department. And if we still don't get our response, then we're going to reach out to the insurance commissioner's office, right? And ask them to advocate on our behalf. Could you please help me get an answer from my insurance company? Hopefully his office will write a letter to your carrier requesting a response within certain days, right? Also, when you email your adjuster, please put a timeline in there. Please respond within 14 days. Please respond within 10 days, right? And we're gonna keep record of all that. So if we do have to go to the insurance commissioner's office, we have all of that as supporting docs for our claim, okay? For our complaint. So guys, I would like to hear a little bit about your situations, but really to wrap things up, I just want to say it's very important for you to stay organized and keep a claim diary. It's another step, and I know it's another task that you have to do amongst a lot of things that you're having to do right now. But honestly, this keeps you straight. So if we have to make a complaint, hopefully we don't. But if we have to, we have a diary of everything. Spoke to my adjuster today. Adjuster made certain promises, or this is what happened, right? Demand written communication. Verbal communication with an adjuster, as many of you, I can see many of your faces, it is not going to carry any weight. We need that in writing. Yes, Frank.
Sorry, I just need you to translate something into like layman's English, because I got a response from the commissioner's office about my claim,
Uh-huh.
and I meant to ask you about this, but I didn't actually understand what they were trying to say. They said, well,
What, 1 second, Frank. Why don't me and you table that to the side so I have actual time to really read it. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. If you want to read it and see if anybody else has got it, go ahead.
Quickly, it basically said that while we've attempted to mediate the claim dispute and thoroughly review the insurance company's claim with respect to your claim, we regret that we are unable to resolve this particular dispute. So is that like
Let's table. We'll take a deep dive because I want to know what the issue and everything was. Absolutely. Okay. Guys, please use the commissioner's office to help with complaints, right? Please use me. There's quite a few in here that I've sat down with before. I will take you as far as I can take you. I will help you make that call to the insurance commissioner's office. I cannot negotiate on behalf with insurance companies, but I can educate and guide you through the process, and I would be happy to do so, okay? But if we have to go to the CDI, whenever we feel our rights are being violated to a point that we can't resolve between ourselves, right? Consider coming here for the free. By the way, we're doing an insurance week this week where I'm meeting with a bunch of people one-on-one. But beyond that, I'm still here. So if you can't meet this week, it's not that you're not going to get another chance, okay? I would like to meet with every one of you, but if you have any issues and you need, just call the office and we'll set a time to meet, okay?
Question.
Yes.
On the debris removal,
Uh-huh.
when, we opted in for the,
The Army Corps?
Thank
Mhm.
you, to do that. So, we got an initial, receipt, I guess, or documentation that they did it. But are they also supposed to give us, receipt saying how much it costs?
So with the Army Corps, if they charge, it's going to charge you what you would have received from your insurance company for debris removal, which is typically about 5% of the coverage A. Okay? That's why it's important for us to look at your policy, to know what you need to set aside in case you receive a bill from the Army Corps. But they're not going to charge you more than what you...
Well, my concern are we supposed to get a monetary receipt from them? Because, my insurance, this person, I sent them the initial documentation saying that it was done, that they did it, done. I thought that was the end of it, and they would, get in touch somehow with Army Corps of Engineers. But
Right.
is Army Corps of Engineers supposed to give us a monetary receipt?
I'm not sure if they're supposed to give you a receipt, right? A lot of times, the insurance company will send the debris removal directly to the Army Corps. And sometimes I've had some clients that says that they are going to receive because they received their debris removal money.
No, I have not received.
I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying that. So it could work either way. If you receive the debris removal money from your insurance carrier, I would put that into a separate account. I would move that to the side in case you do have to pay the Army Corps of Engineer. From what I understand, you may not be receiving bills from the Army Corps, but I'm not an expert in that. And so
This insurance company, this dude is asking me for that, and, I'm not gonna.
they're
go on
asking
my-
you, yeah, because
for
they
this
need to
receipt.
settle up with the Army Corps. But if you don't have it yet, then you can't give it to them, right? And so let them know you'll give it to them as soon as you receive the bill,
If I ever receive it.
if you ever receive it. That's right. Okay? Any other questions, guys?
I have one.
Uh-huh.